Hi, my name is William Castillo, and this is my video lecture on Chapter 9, Identifying Automatic Thoughts. So, Chapter 9 is basically about how and why to identify automatic thoughts. But before we can get into the how and why is it important, we have to identify automatic thoughts, right? We have to define it, like, what is it? So, basically, an automatic thought is a stream of thinking that coexists with more manifest streams of thought. So, we are not usually aware of these thoughts. We're pretty much unaware of these thoughts, but with enough training and enough teaching and learning, we can become conscious of these thoughts and become more aware of these thoughts as they come in our head. Um, this is important so we can check ourselves, and uh, and it helps us from falling into psychological dysfunction. Now, for example, someone that does suffer from psychological dysfunction, they're affected by automatic thoughts in the following way. So, for example, let's say a patient named Jeff. Let's say this patient named Jeff is studying for Principles of Counseling final with Fulton, right? And he's sitting in class, and Fulton's explaining. He's playing Kendrick Lamar in the beginning of class, and then he's explaining, right? He's explaining how to do this, how to do that, and Jeff is sitting there, and he's sitting there, and he thinks a thought comes to his head, and he says, "Man, like, I don't get this. I don't get this at all. Like, dang, I don't get it." So now, automatic thoughts would trigger if someone struggles with psychological dysfunction, his thoughts would get more extreme to the point where he wouldn't just think, "Man, I don't get this." He would think, "Man, I will never get this," or "I'm stupid because I don't get this." Um, this can cause his emotions to change, his emotions to sway. He could become saddened or depressed. This chapter really focuses on identifying automatic thoughts, and the goal of this chapter is to help patients evaluate their automatic thoughts and adapt their responses. So instead of him thinking, "Oh man, I'm stupid," or "I'll never get this," he'll be able to say, like, "Yes, it's true that I don't get this at the very moment. I don't get this right now, but I'm sure that I can get to understanding if I ask for help, or if I read a little more, if I go back and read this section." So that's what the goal of this book, or the goal of this chapter is. So the chapter focuses on three main concepts to helping the patient. One is explaining automatic thoughts to the patient so they can know what they're looking for to explain to them. Secondly is eliciting and specifying automatic thoughts. And third is teaching patients on how to identify automatic thoughts on their own. So one day they can, just they could learn on their own, so they could be on their own, so it could help them in the long run. Explaining automatic thoughts to patient is the first step to helping the patient gain understanding and gain knowledge on what they're looking for, right? There are three types of automatic thought that the patient needs to know about. The first is the most common, and we all get it. This automatic thought is one that is distorted in some way, and it occurs despite objective evidence to the contrary. So, for example, let's say me and my mom get in a fight, and I think to myself, like, "Oh, she's mad." But then I start thinking to myself, "Oh, she hates me. She hates me. She's not only mad, but she hates me." Even though my mom shows me that she loves me, even though she gives me evidence, even though she tells me verbally, even though she shows it to me, I still think that she hates me, even though there's evidence against it. The second type of automatic thought is actually accurate, but the conclusion that the patient draws may be distorted. So, for example, if I do something wrong to my friend, if I call my friend fat or something, right? And I start thinking to myself, like, "Oh man, like I did something wrong. Like, I feel I did something wrong." That's accurate. That's true. I did do something wrong. But if I start thinking I'm a bad person because I did this, that's a distorted. That's false. That's distorted. And finally, the third type of automatic thought is also valid, but it's dysfunctional. It's decisively dysfunctional. So, for example, let's say Jeff is working on a lot of homework, and he says, "Oh man, this is gonna take forever. It's gonna go long into the night." Um, One thing would be, it's also, it's true. Yes, this homework assignment is gonna be long, like this one. It's gonna be long, but um, the goal is for him to think, Yes, it's long, but by me wallowing here, it's just giving me more anxiety and it's just giving me more stress. Um, I've done it once. I could do it again. It's not out of this world. Um, but it does me no good to just wallow here because the longer I just wallow, the longer it's gonna take. It's important to educate the patient on these three forms of automatic thought in order to help them um, when they're doing it on their own. Another way of explaining automatic thought is to provide psychoeducation, which is bringing the patient to talk about their thoughts and pinpointing it to the point where you could use their thoughts as an example. So you could say like that, like the therapist will say like that right there. That was a automatic thought. So the patient can understand because his thoughts were used as an example. After explaining the concept of automatic thoughts and giving them information on it, the next step is to be able to identify automatic thoughts. Um, Eliciting automatic thoughts is a skill that takes practice. Some people can catch it really quick. Some people, get on the ball real fast. But there are also some people and even some therapists that, need some help and some patients that need some more guidance to be able to get this. But the main thing that you want to ask is what's on your mind. What was on your mind during this point? Because you want to get them to remember what was on your mind so they can get to the point where they thought about the automatic thought that triggered the way that triggered something that triggered their behavior, that then that behavior triggered their emotion, right? So you want to ask them to pinpoint that. You ask this in two scenarios. The time you ask what's on your mind is either a a patient is describing a problematic situation that arose, usually since the previous session together, or B, when you notice a shift or intensification of negative effect during a session. Sometimes the patient will be able to unanswer, like they'll be like, I don't know, or I don't remember, or it left my mind, you know what I mean? And there's certain things you could do to try to jog their memory or try to bring that emotion back. One is ask them about how they were feeling in their body and explain their emotions. Sometimes that helps bring out the sometimes that helps bring out the automatic thoughts and helps them to remind themselves what they were thinking. Secondly, elicit the detailed description of the problematic situation. Third, you can request the patient visualize the distressing situation. Fourth, should suggest that the patient role play the specific interaction with you. Five, elicit an image. Six, supply thoughts opposite to the ones you hypothesize actually went through their minds. So if you say something opposite, they'll be like, no, 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 that's not it. Like, it was this or it was that. Um, Seven, ask them for the meaning of the situation. And eight, phrase the question differently. If you phrase the question differently, it might click in their head, or it helps them. It guides them to a better spot, to the point where they can remember. And then finally, the last part is teaching the patients to identify their own automatic thoughts so they can do it on their own in the future. So, one of the main things that you can do is tell the patient to jot down on a piece of paper when they feel that their mood changes, when they feel that, oh, I'm sad now or I'm depressed, to jot down what they were feeling at that moment so they could identify the automatic thought and change their way of thinking, change their cognition before they get depressed or before they get anxiety. Or replay the scene or ask them, and always tell them to ask themselves, what's going on through my mind right now? What's going on through my mind right now? So they can be able to identify that. So, to summarize, people with psychological disorders make predictable errors in their thinking. You teach patients to identify their dysfunctional thinking, then evaluate it and modify it. The process starts with the recognition of specific automatic thoughts and specific situations. Identifying automatic thoughts is a skill that comes easily and naturally to some patients and difficult to others, as I mentioned before. You need to listen closely and ensure the patients report actual thoughts, and you need to vary your questions if the patient did not really identify their thoughts. Um, you gotta let them know that just because they think something, it doesn't mean that that's who they are. And that's my video.